We're counting down 10 planes that look like jaw-dropping bargains. But you only notice the cost once you start paying the real bills. From airframes that tempt you with twin engines but cannot climb on one engine, to luxury models that will drown your savings in hidden repair costs, every aircraft on this list has a low sticker price for a reason. Some entries disappoint with sluggish performance and overpriced parts. Others threaten with corrosion, irreversible downtime, or a reputation that scares away both mechanics and insurers. Which plane is merely a money pit, and which one could put your future or your finances in a real tailspin? Let's begin the countdown with number 10. Here is the bargain that lures more dreamers than any other, the Piper Apache. For $40,000, you get 2 engines, a big cabin, and the promise of twin safety. That is the bait. On paper, it is a family hauler with ramp presence, a real airplane, not just a toy. But the moment you lose an engine, reality sets in. The original 150 horsepower Lycoming engines can barely keep the Apache climbing on one. The official number is 20 feet per minute, best case. That is not a climb, it is a slow drift toward the trees. The joke among mechanics is that the Apache with one engine out is just a heavy single, but with twice the fuel burn and twice the anxiety. Then you open the cowl and find the real trap: hydraulics and leaks. FAA records show over 200 official leak reports in just the last decade. Owners swap hoses, chase actuator drips, and bleed systems until their wallets bleed too. $2,000 to $12,000 per round, and the leaks always come back. One owner bought in at $35,000 and spent $15,000 on hydraulics alone before giving up. The verdict: the Apache is a twin that flies like a single and costs double to keep in the air. That is why you can buy one so cheap. Nobody wants to pay for the second engine's bad habits. Step inside a Musketeer and you will think you have found the ultimate sleeper deal. The cabin feels like a living room. The yoke has that classic beach heft, and the price tag, often under $50,000, looks like a misprint. It is bigger than a Cessna 172 and just as friendly to fly. But then you head to the parts counter and the dream ends. Beechcraft does not do generic parts. A simple hinge that costs $5 on a Piper will set you back $200 here. Need a replacement bolt? $50 each. Owners joke you do not buy a Musketeer, you adopt its parts bill. Annual parts spend runs $10,000 to $20,000 per year, and that is before you get creative with salvage yards. The Musketeer cruises at a leisurely 130 knots, so you are not exactly burning up the sky. The real burn happens at the register. Verdict: you save money buying in, then lose it all to Beechcraft's monopoly pricing. It is the slowest way to go broke in aviation. The Commander 112 struts onto the ramp like it owns the place. Sleek lines, trailing link gear, and a nose that promises Italian sports car speed. The price hovers around $70,000, and sellers love to whisper about its executive feel. But then you check the climb rate. Fully loaded, you are clawing for altitude at less than 800 feet per minute. That is not ascent, that is wishful thinking. The real gut punch hides in the wings. Airworthiness Directive 811007 demands regular inspections for spar cracks, and when the ultrasound finds one, you are staring at a repair bill north of $20,000. That is, if you can even find a shop willing to touch it. And those beautiful trailing link gear legs? They need a full overhaul every 5 years at $15,000 each. The Commander 112 is all ramp romance until the maintenance logs come out. Verdict: you look like a rock star taxiing, but you will be left standing on the ground, wallet empty, ego bruised, and still waiting for takeoff. The Piper Colt is the certified airplane equivalent of a thrift store impulse buy. For $8,000 to $20,000, you get a high-wing classic with just enough nostalgia to tempt first-time buyers. It is the cheapest legal way to fly a real airplane, and on the ramp, it oozes that vintage Piper charm. But the minute you start planning your adventures, the walls close in. There are no flaps. There is no back seat. The only thing you can carry is yourself and maybe a lunchbox if you do not mind eating it alone. The Colt's biggest trick is not what it does, but what it does not do. Every hour you spend in the air, the clock is ticking down on that fabric covering. After 20 years, the FAA says it is time to recover, and that bill runs from $8,000 to $20,000. That is more than you paid for the entire plane. The process takes weeks, and you will spend more time watching glue dry than actually flying. Owners say you outgrow the Colt in 10 hours. By the time you have learned to land without flaps, you are already browsing listings for something that can carry friends, groceries, or just your pride. Verdict: the Colt is a dead end, cheap to buy, expensive to keep, and impossible to love for long. The Lake Buccaneer lures buyers with the promise of adventure, an amphibian for under $100,000, ready to touch down on any lake or river. The brochure shows sunsets and sparkling water, but the reality is a lot less romantic. The Buccaneer hull is famous for porpoising, bouncing on the step until the nose digs in and the plane flips over. NTSB case ERA19FA091 tells the story. A routine water landing in Florida, one bounce, then a sickening roll. Survivors watch their flying boat become a $120,000 write-off. But the real wallet killer is corrosion. Every saltwater splash seeps into the stringers, eating away at the aluminum you cannot see. Owners say 5 years in brackish water means a $30,000 to $50,000 bill just to keep the hull airworthy. Some shops will not even quote a full hull repair. They just shake their heads. Insurance companies know the odds. Most will not touch a Buccaneer unless you log 50 hours of seaplane time first, and even then expect a premium that rivals your mortgage. The lake looks like freedom, but it is the most expensive way to drown your savings. The market is not stupid. It knows why these planes gather dust. The dream is cheap, but the repairs are tidal, and the only thing deeper than the water is the hole in your wallet. Every Cirrus SR20 Gen 1 listing looks like a modern miracle. You get a glass cockpit, a slick composite airframe, and the famous red parachute handle, all for around $110,000. The seller points to the CAPS system, the whole airplane parachute, like it is a get-out-of-jail-free card. But here is the bill they hope you do not see. Every 10 years, that parachute needs a mandatory repack. The cost is $15,000 to $18,000 non-negotiable. And right now, 60% of the Gen 1 SR20 aircraft for sale are overdue for it. That bargain price is not a discount. It is a handoff of a ticking invoice. Skip the repack, and insurance companies will not touch you. Try to negotiate, and the only thing you will get is a lecture about safety bulletins and FAA compliance. The parachute is not an option. It is a payment plan with a 10-year reset button. Owners joke that the SR20 comes with a built-in balloon payment, just not the fun kind. So when you see a Cirrus that is thousands below market, check the logbooks. Odds are you are about to inherit a $15,000 surprise. Verdict: it is not a cheap plane. It is a cheap way for the current owner to dodge the next big bill. The Cessna 310 sits on the ramp with its tip tanks and big twin stance, promising 190 knots for less than the price of a new pickup. The sales pitch is all about speed, payload, and that classic Sky King silhouette. But when you check the logbooks, you find a geared engine entry. That is not a feature, it is a warning label. Early 310s used Continental IO 470 and IO 520 engines with reduction gearboxes, a setup that adds complexity and failure points. Every owner dreads the moment the gearbox starts to whine or leak oil. The overhaul bill is $40,000, and that is per engine. Buy a cheap 310 and you are one gearbox event away from doubling your investment overnight. FAA service. Difficulty reports show more than 150 gearbox failures and major repairs in just the past decade. The story rarely ends with one engine. Most cheap 310s are overdue on both. Then there is the landing gear, a web of actuators and rods notorious for cracks and corrosion. The Airworthiness Directive mandated repair runs $10,000 if you catch it early. Miss it, and you are grounded. Do not forget the tip tank plumbing, a labyrinth of lines and valves that can turn a simple fuel leak into a $5,000 chase. The verdict is clear. The 310 is a corporate airplane with a bargain sticker, but the market knows better. If you do not treat gearbox history as a go or no-go item, you are not buying a plane. You are buying a parts bill with wings. The SATA Rallye always draws a crowd at small airports. It leaps off short grass strips, floats down with leading-edge slats out, and shrugs off stalls like it is cheating gravity. For $45,000, you get a French STOL legend that makes a Cessna look clumsy. But then you try to keep it flying in the United States, and the fantasy evaporates. Every part that matters, slats, brakes, even a simple control cable, comes from France. Not from a warehouse in Ohio, but from a factory outside Tarbes, if they still make it. The average wait for a slat actuator is 6 months. Brake pads take 3 months, and that is if you catch the next shipment. Owners have stories of Rallyes grounded for an entire flying season, waiting for a box with their name on it. Some get desperate and call Rallye Revival in Oregon, hoping they can cannibalize a derelict for spares. Others wire money to French Parts USA and pray the package clears customs before the next annual inspection. Meanwhile, most A&P mechanics just shake their heads. The Rally's quirks and metric hardware scare off even the bravest shops. Many will not touch one at any price. That $45,000 deal quickly turns into a hangar queen, gathering dust while you scroll through French eBay for a used slat. The market is not punishing the Rallye for what it is, but for what it is not, a plane you can actually keep in the air. Before you fall for the STOL magic, ask yourself, how much is 6 months of lost flying worth to you? For most pilots, the answer is simple. That is why the Rallye is always cheap and always alone. The V-tail Bonanza sits on the ramp with the swagger of a classic promising 200 knots and country club style for less than the price of a new SUV. It is the plane that built the legend of the Dr. Killer, and not just because of its speed. The real danger hides in the tail. Early models, especially those built before 1960, used magnesium skins for the ruddervators. Magnesium is light and strong, but it is also the metal equivalent of a ticking time bomb. All it takes is one spot of corrosion, often hidden deep inside, and FAA says you are grounded for good. Airworthiness. Directive number 82-10-12 demands repeated inspections, but even the most careful owner cannot always catch the rot before it spreads. Replacement ruddervators, good luck. Beech stopped making them decades ago, and the salvage market is picked clean. The result? More than 20% of the early V-tail fleet is permanently unairworthy, parked in hangars with for sale signs, and no hope of flying again. One owner found a bubble of corrosion during a pre-buy inspection and watched his $40,000 dream turn into a $40,000 parts plane overnight. The market is not punishing these bonanzas for their reputation, it is the magnesium itself that is the executioner. Miss a single corrosion spot, and you are out of the game, no appeal. The V-tail Bonanza is a masterclass in how a cheap price tag can hide a fatal flaw. You do not just need a mechanic, you need a metallurgist and a miracle. Jet speeds for the price of a used Tesla. That is the bait the Mitsubishi MU-2 dangles in front of every would-be turbine owner. 300 knots, a pressurized cabin, and a ramp presence that makes King Airs look like delivery vans, all for around $300,000. Sellers whisper that it is the best deal in aviation. But the market is not fooled. The MU-2 is the final boss of cheap planes, and the reason is brutal. It is not just expensive to own, it is nearly impossible to insure or even legally fly unless you are ready to live like a test pilot. Forget ailerons. The MU-2 uses spoilers to roll. That sounds like a technicality, but in the real world, it means the yoke feels nothing like a Cessna, and the airplane reacts to turbulence and engine failures with a personality all its own. Pilots who expect gentle stall behavior or forgiving handling are in for a rude awakening. Early on, the accident rate was so ugly, 24 fatal crashes between 1996 and 2008, that the FAA stepped in with a special rule named SFAR 108. Now, before you can even think about flying one, you must complete a mandatory, type-specific training course. That is not a weekend checkout. Expect $10,000 to $20,000 up front, plus $8,000 to $12,000 every year just to stay current. Skip it, and you are grounded by law. Pass it, and you still have to convince an insurance company you are worth the risk. That is where the dream usually ends. Insurance brokers laugh when you ask for a quote. For new owners, six-figure annual premiums are not a punchline. They are reality. Some companies will not even offer coverage at any price, especially after the rule change. One owner reported a quote of $112,000 a year, more than a third of the plane's value. And forget about financing. Most banks see an MU-2 on the application and move on. The only people flying these now are veterans with spotless logbooks and a stomach for paperwork. But the real sting comes when you try to sell. The market for used MU-2s is a graveyard of listings that never move, not because the airplanes are broken, but because the barriers to entry are taller than the airplane itself. Every so-called bargain is just a handoff of a regulatory and financial burden. The MU-2 delivers the performance of a $2 million turboprop, but it demands the discipline and wallet of a professional crew. The verdict, plain and simple, the ultimate cheap trap. It is not a plane you buy, it is a challenge you survive. Only the most committed pilots need apply. Across all 10 entries, one pattern stands out. In aviation, a cheap sticker price is never the whole story. Hidden costs, mechanical nightmares, and market scars always surface. The true expense is paid over years, not at purchase. That is why the market punishes shortcuts. Every tempting deal is a warning in disguise. Would you risk it for the right price? Let me know in the comments.